Welcome to this special podcast, sponsored by Murphy Business Sales Edison, New Jersey office, where your business aspirations meet expert guidance. Whether you're looking to sell your business or explore new acquisition opportunities, we are here to support you every step of the way. Join us as our hosts deep dive into small business topics which are relevant for buyers, sellers, and other transaction advisors in the ecosystem.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're strapping in for a really interesting look at mergers and acquisitions M&A. Specifically, what happens when the deal involves two direct competitors?
Yeah, head-to-head rivals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You've got one company trying to buy another that it competes with every single day. And that whole process, well, it's a massive regulatory and strategic tightrope walk, isn't it?
It really is. It creates this immediate fundamental conflict. If you're the selling company, you have to open up your books, right? Financially, commercially. The buyer needs that for due diligence to figure out what your business is actually worth.
Makes sense.
But, and this is the huge catch, you absolutely cannot legally or strategically just hand over your crown jewels, your competitive edge.
Right.
Especially if there's a chance that deal might just collapse.
Right. And that tension, that's really what we're diving into today. How do you balance that need for, almost total transparency for the buyer with the absolute need for the seller to keep their competitive secrets secure?
It's a minefield.
How do companies even navigate this? Sharing detailed customer lists, their secret pricing models, supplier deals, without breaking antitrust laws or, frankly, ruining the seller if the deal goes south?
Well, there's a specific mechanism. It's called the clean team. And our mission today is really to dig into the source material we have and understand this critical structure.
The clean team.
Exactly. It's what facilitates these deeply competitive deals while rigorously protecting what's called competitively sensitive information, CSI. So we're going to unpack the specific steps they take, what data they shield, and crucially, the benefits. Speed for the buyer, security for the seller.
Okay, let's start right there. The why. Why do we need this clean team in the first place? If two companies are talking merger, the seller's holding all the cards, data-wise. What specific information is just too toxic to hand over directly to the buyer's main team?
We're talking about the stuff that defines how you compete and win. So, raw specific customer names, for example. How much revenue each one brings in, what their specific contract terms are.
Ah, I see.
If that goes straight to a competitor, even one that might buy you, they could start targeting your best accounts immediately, before any deal is even inked.
And it's more than just the customer list itself, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Think about the really granular financial stuff. Your specific product cost breakdowns. Which suppliers give you the best deals? Detailed profitability, maybe even contract by contract, and, maybe most damagingly, your precise pricing strategies and discount structures.
Wow, okay. That's the playbook.
That's the whole playbook. If the deal fails and the competitor walks away knowing all that, it could be devastating for the selling company. Their entire advantage is just gone.
So the clean team comes in basically to build a wall, a protective boundary. It sounds like it's not just about ticking compliance boxes, it's fundamental survival.
It's the ultimate defense mechanism, really. Think of it as a digital and procedural ring fence. The clean team members are the only ones who get to see that raw, sensitive data, the margins, the customer lists, the, trade secrets.
But they don't just pass it along.
No, absolutely not. They don't share those raw details with the buyer's regular operational teams, the people making day-to-day competitive decisions. Their job isn't to deliver the data. It's to digest it, analyze it, and then provide only aggregated, anonymized, and non-sensitive insights.
Insights. Okay.
Just enough information to support the buyer's valuation models and their synergy calculations. That's it.
So if I'm selling my company, I need the buyer to have confidence in the numbers, but I also need total confidence that if we don't agree on price, they walk away with nothing they can use against me tomorrow.
That's precisely the balancing act. The clean team ensures compliance, yes, with confidentiality agreements and, crucially, antitrust laws. But what really stands out from the sources is this. It lets the seller share just enough to keep the deal moving forward,
right,
while keeping their deepest competitive secrets locked down tight.
Okay, so we understand why the data is so risky and needs protecting.
Yeah.
The next big question is how? How do they actually lock it down? This brings us to what you call the clean team playbook. What's this clean room we hear about? Is it like an actual locked office somewhere?
Not really anymore. I mean, maybe it started that way, but now the clean room is mostly a secure digital fortress. The whole process, the scope of work, it's very rigorously structured.
How so?
Well, it starts by formally identifying and classifying every single piece of competitively sensitive information, CSI. Once you know what's sensitive, that data gets moved into a dedicated, completely segregated digital environment.
And I assume that environment needs some serious defenses.
Oh yeah, high-level security, encryption is standard. But maybe the most critical piece is meticulous audit logging.
Audit logging, tracking who looks at what.
Exactly, and more. It's not just about controlling who gets in, it's about tracking every single action, every login, every file opened, every search query run, even how long someone viewed a sensitive file. If there's ever a regulatory question or a legal fight later, they can produce a complete documented history of exactly who accessed what data, when, and for how long.
That's intense, like an internal surveillance system. And, okay, the dreaded scenario.
Yeah.
What if the deal falls through after all this data sharing?
Then the protocol is ironclad. There are formal data disposition rules, mandatory dilution or return of all sensitive information. The buyer has to walk away clean with zero residual competitive advantage from the data they saw.
And this is enforced.
Yes, usually confirmed by external lawyers, documented with confirmation letters saying, yep, we destroyed it all.
Okay, now the people, the members of this clean team, they're holding the keys to this digital kingdom. What are the golden rules about who actually gets to be on this team?
Membership is absolutely critical, and you can bet the antitrust lawyers scrutinize this heavily. It's typically a mix. You'll have independent third-party advisors, think auditors, maybe specialist consultants, plus a very, very select group of trusted, pre-vetted employees from the buyer's side.
Ah, okay, so some buyer employees are involved, but presumably they can't just pick their head of sales or their chief strategy officer.
Absolutely not. That's the core restriction. It's non-negotiable. Clean team members from the buyer must not be involved in any current market-facing roles, before the deal closes anyway. Meaning zero involvement in ongoing competitive pricing decisions, no input into current product strategy, no managing sales territories. They have to be completely walled off, almost quarantined from the buyer's day-to-day competitive operations.
So their knowledge is used just for planning the potential integration.
Precisely. Strictly for integration planning and valuation analysis, not for competing before the deal is done.
Okay, their knowledge is kind of put on ice until regulators approve the merger. But doesn't this create a risk for the buyer? If the clean team can only share aggregated summaries, how does the buyer really know the analysis is sound? Isn't that a leap of faith?
It is a calculated risk, definitely, but it's a necessary one. And this leads us right into the strategic value proposition, especially for the buyer. Why do they agree to this? Yeah, why?
Because the alternative, getting slammed by regulators, is far, far worse. So for the buyer, the clean team is about mitigating huge risks and actually speeding things up. It minimizes antitrust risk and helps them avoid serious gun-jumping problems.
Okay, let's pause on gun jumping. We hear that term. For anyone listening, what does that actually mean and why is it such a big deal?
Right. Gun jumping is basically when the buyer starts acting like the merger is already done before they have regulatory approval.
Oh.
So, for instance, imagine the buyer's clean team looks at the seller's raw pricing data. And then, based on that specific information, the buyer goes and changes its own prices in the market before the deal is approved. That's gun jumping. It's seen as illegal coordination between competitors.
And the consequences.
They can be massive. Fines in the tens, even hundreds of millions of dollars. Or, worst case, regulators could block the entire merger. The clean team structure is designed to make sure the buyer can't even be accused of that kind of improper coordination. Okay, so avoiding huge fines is a pretty good incentive.
Okay.
But you said it also accelerates things. How does restricting information actually speed up the deal's value?
It seems counterintuitive, but it does. Because the clean team can create a fully validated synergy baseline really early on, and that's gold for confirming the deal's valuation.
Synergies. The cost savings and revenue gains from combining.
Exactly. And it helps the buyer get ready for day one if the deal closes. Think about it. They need to plan how to keep customers from leaving, how to integrate the workforces, how to make sure the supply chains don't break. The clean team lets them design all of that based on reliable, aggregated insights without seeing the raw, competitively dangerous data beforehand.
Okay, so let's talk outputs. If they can't share specific customer names or exact prices, what kind of reports are they generating that allow this integration planning?
They produce really crucial aggregated analyses. Things that turn that risky raw data into actionable but safe intelligence. For example, a customer overlap analysis. It won't list names, but it might show, say, that 40% of customers in Segment A are served by both companies in the Southwest region.
Got it. So the buyer knows where the biggest integration challenges or opportunities might be with customers without knowing exactly who they are yet.
Precisely. It informs their strategy for sales territories, for customer retention plans, post-merger.
And what about the cost side? That's usually where the big synergy numbers come from in M&A.
Right. So they'll produce StackCU or supplier harmonization data. Let's say the buyer sells product A and the seller sells product X. And the clean team analysis shows A and X are essentially the same thing, just branded differently.
Oh.
That allows the buyer to plan day one, okay, we can potentially phase out X, cut redundant inventory, and maybe consolidate our contracts with the suppliers for A. Big procurement savings potential planned out early.
And people, workforce planning. We hear about FTE synergy baselines.
Yeah, FTE just means full-time equivalent, basically headcount. The clean team maps out the organizational structures of both companies. They identify where there's functional overlap, like 2 separate finance departments in the same region or 2 HR teams.
Right, duplication.
They aggregate that data to establish an FTE synergy baseline. It tells the buyer, okay, based on structure, there's a potential to streamline by X number of roles in these combined functions. Again, this lets them plan the post-merger organizational design without seeing individual employee names, salaries, or performance reviews pre-close.
That makes a lot of sense. They're basically translating the raw, risky stuff into these actionable but risk-free integration blueprints. And for the seller, all this professionalism must be a benefit too, right? Because if the buyer's more confident, they can actually get those synergies.
It absolutely is. It signals to the buyer that the seller is sophisticated, well-prepared. It helps the seller maintain control over their critical customer and supplier relationships during the really sensitive pre-close limbo. And yes, ultimately, synergy certainty helps drive a higher valuation. Buyers pay more for businesses where they feel confident they can hit the ground running and capture value quickly.
Okay. Moving from the process itself to the legal backbone, there has to be a contract governing all this, right?
Right.
You mentioned the Clean Team Agreement, the CTA. This sounds like the rule book. If I'm the seller, what parts of that CTA are absolutely critical for my protection?
The CTA is arguably the single most important document here. It defines the whole risk relationship. For the seller, the priorities are all about control and protection. So first off, the scope and purpose section. It needs to be crystal clear and quite narrow in defining exactly what counts as CSI.
Okay.
And it has to strictly limit the acceptable use of any analysis, purely for valuation and integration planning. Nothing else. No competitive reconnaissance allowed.
And then how does it control what the clean team can actually share with the rest of the buyer's company?
That's covered by the reporting restrictions. These have to be incredibly tight. Strict adherence to aggregated results only, no specific identifiers, 0 customer names, no exact pricing figures for specific deals, no naming key suppliers, and their terms, none of that can be released from the clean room without explicit sign-off from legal and compliance first.
That sounds like the real firewall.
It defines that protective boundary, yes.
But, contracts are just paper until something goes wrong.
Right.
What actually gives the CTA its teeth if someone breaches the rules?
That comes under enforcement and indemnification. The CTA has to spell out explicit penalties for any breach. That could include financial penalties, maybe even giving the seller the right to terminate the whole deal process.
Wow.
And crucially, strong indemnification clauses. Meaning, if the buyer's team misuses the data and the seller suffers damage competitively, legally, the buyer is on the hook to compensate them. That formal legal threat is essential because the risk of misuse, intentional or accidental, is just so significant.
Okay, and the ultimate stress test. The deal collapses. All that sensitive data is still technically within the buyer's sphere, even if it's in the clean room. How does the CTA guarantee the seller gets their secrets back or ensures they're gone?
Through very specific data disposition requirements. The CTA sets absolute non-negotiable deadlines for the mandatory verified destruction or return of all that sensitive CSI if the deal fails.
Verified destruction.
Yeah, this isn't just a promise. The buyer typically has to provide formal confirmation letters, often backed up by an IT audit trail or certification, proving that every last bit of CSI has been wiped from their systems, including backups. It ensures the buyer truly walks away with 0 remaining competitive advantage from the process. That safeguards the seller's future viability.
So wrapping that up, the CTA basically formalizes all these rules of engagement we've discussed. It prevents leaks to the buyer's operational teams, And it's the final legal backstop against serious regulatory trouble like gun jumping or breaching any standstill agreements.
Exactly. It structures this really complex interaction where, the huge risk of sharing vital information meets the potentially massive reward of a successful merger. It's necessary friction, you could say.
Well, this has been an incredibly clear explanation, a real deep dive into a complex topic. I think the central takeaway here is that this clean team model, it's this really sophisticated, highly regulated solution that's basically required to manage the central paradox of modern M&A, isn't it?
It seems so.
This need for almost total transparency for valuation, right alongside the need for absolute competitive security. It's a mechanism built fundamentally on procedure, on audit trails, and on legal enforceability.
Right. And what's kind of fascinating when you step back and look at the sources is how the entire framework isn't really built on, say, human trust between these two fierce competitors. It's almost built on procedural distrust.
Interesting way to put it.
Yeah, this insistence on legal enforcement, on audit trails, on strict segregation. So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to ponder. Given these really stringent security, communication, and membership rules we've talked about, how does the very existence of a clean team change how companies should think about defining trust and managing risk when they're considering merging with a major rival? It certainly shifts the focus towards process and legal documentation, doesn't it?
That is an excellent point to end on. Definitely something to think about regarding trust in high-stakes business deals. Thank you so much for walking us through the Clean Team Playbook today.
My pleasure. Always interesting to get into the details.
Thank you from all of us at Murphy Business Sales for taking the time to learn about this important topic. We look forward to working together to achieve your business aspirations. For more information or a complimentary consultation for sell-side services, visit us at murphybusiness.com/Edison and complete our Contact Us form.